ain't enough room in the world for all of these giant dragons. So naturally, they're going to meet on the battlefield just to kind of whittle out the population a little bit. That is the essence of D&D Attack Wing, a miniature skirmish game that is based off of Dungeons and Dragons, so it's in a fantasy setting, but similar in play to Star Wars X-Wing or Star Trek Attack Wing. Of course, the difference is this has dragons and giants and gargoyles, and so there's both land and air combat all mixing together. It's a pretty nifty game, so let's take a look at it and then I'll tell you what I thought of D&D Attack Wing. To start, you're going to need to build your army. This is done by spending points. The max is commonly set at 120. First, choose your fighters. See these cards? They have a point value. Each creature has two versions. Their named version, which is always more powerful and costs more to field, and the unnamed version, which can still prove potent but also costs less. Don't spend all your money on creatures because you also have to give them abilities. Every creature has certain abilities that are native to them. Lightning dragons can more easily equip lightning attacks, that sort of thing. Every ability has a point cost, and each character card shows how many of each type of ability they can equip, as well as the actions available to them each turn. Once your army is built, place your creature at the edge of the table. It's time to rumble. First comes the planning phase. Each creature has a movement dial. Secretly set your movement. The numbers and the arrows correspond to these dorky looking maneuver tools. When you move, you place the tool at the base of your creature, then just move it along to the end. Next comes the activation phase. The lowest level creature gets to go first. Reveal your movement dial, move using the maneuver tool. If you're a flying creature, you can now either take off from the ground or land. Then you perform one action, not an attack, an action, like targeting or increasing accuracy of your attack, or concentrating to turn any focus results from your attack or defensive roll to successes. Some abilities use actions instead of attacks. Be sure to check your keywords. Once everyone's moved, it's time for combat. The highest level goes first and gets one attack. The target must be within your attack arc and within range. Roll attack dice equal to the ability of your natural attack power. The defender rolls dice equal to his defensive rating. Dodges cancel out hits. Anything that goes through is first deflected by armor. When you do damage, you track hits with these face-down wound cards. But critical hits draw the wound card face up, which adds further complications. Now, there's a little more to combat, like air versus ground forces. If you're in the air, you need to swoop for a melee attack against a ground force, but you can hit a ground opponent from the air with a breath attack. Lightning bolt! Ground troops can't melee flying creatures, but they can still target them with ranged attacks. And the stone giant is pretty brutal, flinging rocks. There are a couple of things that set D&D Attack Wing apart from its competitors. Well, one, it's a pure fantasy setting, right? That makes it different in its own, and the fact that there's both air and ground combats. You don't really see that very often, but the really big difference, I think, is just the level of customization. Now keep in mind, this is meant as a very sort of entry-level, light, easy to get into type of miniatures game, so this isn't heavy like Warhammer where you're building figs and painting them, and the rules book is really giant and thick. Like, this is really meant to be you buy this, you pick it up, you just start off playing, and it's easy to get into and learn. And games like that often don't have a lot of customization to them, but D&D Attack Wing does. That's its absolute strong point, is its customization. And what I mean by that is, okay, so each of these characters has both a common name, so this would just be a green dragon, or they have their own unique name, which means that it's a more powerful version of the dragon, has different abilities, access to new stuff, might have more health and more strength, that kind of thing. And you have that for every single figure that you buy. And then on top of that, choosing whether you're going to go for a common name or the unique name, you also have tons of cards that you get that you can equip to them. So now every single figure is going to have a point cost, right? So you're trying to balance that out. maybe I want to have this guy, you know, the green dragon, just be a green dragon and not be named, but then at the same time, I want to be able to stack a couple extra cards that I couldn't before. You can totally do that. And even though the blue dragon is the lightning dragon, if you want to equip another dragon with his lightning breath attack, you can do it. It just costs you a couple of extra points from your pool that you can spend to build your army, but you could totally do it. So there's a lot of mixing and matching. And then of course you have this other mixture of not just picking dragons, but maybe you want some ground forces as well. That's what it does best, is just allowing you to really create a very unique army that I could have the same 3 figures as my friend, and just because of the cards we pick, whether we pick named or unnamed sides, we can actually have a very different field, like a very different feel to our army. They can have very different powers, and the battle will play out differently. That's great. I like the idea of having ground forces. It's something different. So here's where I have a real problem with D&D Attack Wing. And the thing that I think really holds it down from being a great game is just the inconsistent production quality. So you see one of the dragons you get from the starter pack, this red dragon, tons of detail to it. Sure, it's you know, it's just cheap kind of rubber, but it looks great, right? It's got a ton of detail in it. This green dragon, which is one of the expansion dragons, looks pretty good. Here's another expansion dragon though. This silver dragon has almost no detailing to it. It's pretty much just a paint of silver with a little bit of black smudge on it to try to give it some texture. It's pretty bland, and it costs the same as this one. And then even this cool shadow dragon, it really just has a blue mouth, and the fact that it's translucent material makes it look cool, but they didn't do any work on it. And then you get a giant that looks great next to this gargoyle that is just plastic. It's just gray plastic. There's no paint to it, right? And on top of that, right, these bases look like kind of like prototype bases. They don't look like a finalized base. They just look cheap. These tokens look like crap, I have to be honest. Like, these tokens, they're just, all of it just doesn't feel like it has the kind of polish that you'd want from a game that you're gonna hopefully spend, or they hope you will spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on. In the end, I gotta say, D&D Attack Wing was slightly underwhelming. I do think that the core of the game is very enjoyable. I just think everything from the cards, the base, the tokens, and half of the expansion figs that are available, they just don't look good enough to merit being Dungeons & Dragons games. I really wish the quality was consistent throughout. But if you like fantasy games and you want to try a really kind of light, fun, tactics game with miniatures that adds a lot of customization to your army, then I'd say give it a try. The base set itself isn't too expensive and comes with 3 dragons, which isn't bad, and you do actually get to see what the expansions are that you're going to buy. So if you look at this silver dragon and go, that looks kind of just don't buy it. Buy something different, right? Buy this cool stone dragon, for example. So that is Dungeons & Dragons Attack Wing. Thanks for sticking around for our review, and if you enjoy our work at Dog and Thimble, please click the subscribe button above me. It would really help us to have as many subscribers as possible so we can keep bringing you awesome videos. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon with another review.